Hey guys, this is Raymond, and today I'm going to talk about foam swords. All right. So anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big fan of foam swords. I like looking at them. I like playing with them. I like making them, um, and I take pride in making them look as realistic as possible. Right. Now today I'm going to talk about why I like foam swords as a training tool. Okay. So when it comes to training or competitive training, so sparring, that kind of thing, there you're constantly balancing two things: safety and realism, right? And typically, the safer you become, the less realistic you become in your training, and the other way around is true. The more realistic you are, the less safe your training becomes. So, on the one side of the spectrum, you have people, basically shadow boxing or, miming movements without actually holding weapons. It's very, very safe, right? But it's not exactly very realistic. The speed, the power is just not there. And even the distancing, it's not there. But it does improve certain characteristics. So if you're only training that, why not, right? While on the other side of the spectrum, you have training with sharp swords, right? So there is some value to doing that, but again, very high on the realism scale, very low on the safety, right? And then every other form of sparring falls in between that spectrum, basically, right? So everything that you have, everything from rattan sticks to padded sticks to nylon trainers, all the way to even metal trainers. They're all a balance of realism and safety. And I propose that there is room for foam swords in the toolbox of martial artists. Okay, so why do I like these things? Well, number one is the realism. I really like how realistic they look. Like if you saw this blade or this foam sword, right? There's no question in your mind what this foam sword is supposed to represent, right? You know this is a straight bladed Chris, right, with an appropriate handle. If you see this blade, this training tool, then you already know it's basically a Filipino sword with a European style handle or a European style guard, right? There's no moment where your mind is trying to abstract, like if you're looking at a padded stick, like, oh, is that a sword, or are we assuming it's a real stick in this competition or in this sparring, in the sparring format? There's no moment of that. And I would argue that goes into your mind in a very, very real, in a very, very visceral level. It triggers something in your lizard brain. If you're sparring with someone and you see them holding something like this, right, as opposed to seeing someone who's holding like a padded stick, and you're supposed to just imagine that, oh yeah, it's supposed to be a sword. I'm supposed to be afraid of that as if it had a blade. As opposed to seeing someone with this, right, you already know, oh, okay, it's supposed to be a blade, right? So there, it's pretty good in the realism department, and it's pretty good in the safety department. I would have to say, being a foam sword, you don't need a lot of equipment to make it safe. I'm not gonna lie to you. This hits like a ton of bricks, still. So you still need maybe eye protection and some gloves. I do not want to be hit in the hand with this thing, because even if it's foam, it's a pretty rigid foam, and it focuses all of that force into this very narrow spot. It can still hurt your hands. But compared to every other form or every other format, for foam swords, all you need to do is just get some some helmets and some gloves, and you're fine. You're good to go. You can spar with these things already. All right. So I love that. It gives you a lot of freedom of movement. You don't feel like you're wearing too much armor, or it doesn't feel artificial at all, right? So you have that aspect. And the thing that I really like about it as a training tool is that foam swords actually bind. Okay, so I'm putting some pressure, some sideward pressure here. So it actually does bind. But the problem, and somebody pointed this out to me, they bind on the edges, but they also kind of bind on the flats. All right, so it's kind of a weird thing. It binds too much, right? But with a little addition of here, this thing, this is a foot deodorant powder, but you can use any kind of powder. You can use baby powder, talcum powder. Yeah, I think you can even use cornstarch or flour, whatever, right? All you do is get a little bit of this, right? And then you just sprinkle it on to your sword, right? Spread it out, right? You spread it around both swords, right? And with that little addition, now the blades are going to slide on the flats, right? So, if you're training like a media range where there's a lot of binding going on, or there's a lot of weapon maneuvering going on, this is great. But now you have the problem where even your blade would not bind because there's a little bit of powder here. It will still bind because of the shape, but it doesn't bind as much as it used to. So basically what you do now is you just get a wet rag or something. Actually, you can even just use like a sorry, I'm just moistening my fingers. You just moisten your fingers like that here, and then that would get rid of the foam along the edge. Sorry, that would get rid of the powder along the edge. So now they would bind really well when you're doing edge to edge contact, and then slide when you're doing flat to flat contact, which is pretty great. And when you do flat to blade, it has that weird moment where it kind of catches, but it doesn't. So, which is again good, but it doesn't catch. All right, but here's a great thing: if it slides and then you do this, it actually catches on the blade, on the edge. So again, it's another layer of realism that you're going to enjoy. Right? So there we are. Foam swords, something to consider. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. This is Raymond. Have a good day. Bye bye.